Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Dwayne. I got a video for that. Kimball, United States Army veteran, retired VA rating specialist, and your VA claim nugget man. Today, I am joined by none other than Dr. Hanners with American Heroes. How you doing today, Dr. Hanners?
Doing well, doing well. How are you?
Yeah, I definitely appreciate you taking the time to do this recording and share some valuable information for our veterans. So, today's topic, we're going to be talking about what are some documents that veterans can bring to a private examiner to help them complete their DBQ or their DBQ and Nexus. So, Dr. Hanners, before we kick it off, just give the veterans a brief background about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Audra Hanners. I'm a dual licensed psychiatric mental health and family nurse practitioner. And since the start of my nursing career, I've really been in this space working with veterans. I've done research in the area of health and wellness for veterans at a university. And I really just, as a military spouse, my husband's a Navy veteran, I really have a special place in my heart to really serve those who serve this great nation, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I know I can speak for all veterans. Thank you uh, for what you do, and a lot of people don't think that okay, they're you're a military spouse. You serve too because you're following and supporting your spouse through their military journey. So whenever your PCS, your husband PCS, bring your family along with you and going through uh, that whole chaos. I know it was chaos for me when I PCS. So thank you for supporting veterans and doing what you do in this space. So first question I have is, if a veteran is reporting in person for you to complete a DBQ and or DBQ Nexus statement, what are some documents you would like the veteran to bring if they haven't submitted them to you already?
Oh, that's a great question. So, yes, granted that the documents haven't been submitted already, any type of medical records, maybe any type of alternative treatments, like maybe massage or chiropractic care notes and things like that, that pertain or that are important and relevant to the claimed condition would be information that would be great to bring along and see. If you have any maybe type of symptom logs, or like if there's migraine symptoms that you keep a log with, bringing those in too to kind of give a full picture. If it's anything like diabetes, if there's some sort of blood sugar tracking, yep, bring those home logs in, as well as any type of medical records, not forgetting that, hey, you're doing some maybe massage therapy or some acupuncture for this specific condition. Bring all of that into so it can be kind of reviewed holistically.
Right. Now, does it benefit the veteran if all this information is organized for you?
I think what I've seen in my experience is it benefits not only the veteran, but it also benefits a clinician that they see. Because rather than the majority of the time being spent, with a clinician trying to shuffle through, trying to kind of organize the information, it's already right up front. It's very
Mhm.
present. It's easy to identify maybe any of the three missing components for a claim, such as, is there a diagnosis missing? Is there a missing in-service connection event? Or a timeline, being able to show that nexus of how military service to present day is connected the condition.
Right. Back when I used to complete what is called educational packets for veterans to educate them on the claims process and what they're doing with their particular claim. And now our software does that. So I don't physically do it. We create a software that does it. I had one of my first clients and we met in person and she brought a binder. And I was thinking to myself, oh, I cringed up a little bit. But when she opened it, this binder had everything. She had the plastic protective covers. She had stuff tabbed, uh, private evidence, date of diagnosis, and I was looking through it, and I actually took about 15 minutes, went through it, and I'm like, yes, this is what I need to see to be able to answer your question. So, a lot of veterans, they'll just show up with a big packet with 1,000 pages and say, here you go. You don't have that type of time if you're doing, conducting an exam to go through 1,000 pages. So that's why I asked, having that stuff organized, possibly tabbed, and you can reference that information really quick.
Yes, because we want to maximize the time that we have with you in person. We want it to be very intentional and not be sorting through paperwork to kind of try to understand why the reason for the visit. So yes, like a binder like that, absolutely. If you have the whole history timeline and the binders tab to where, it's easy to flip to what information is needed, please do. Yep, bring that with you.
Yep. So move right along to the second question. What about clothing for in person? What are some options? Also, is this based on the type of exam that the veteran is showing up for?
Yeah, excellent. Yes. So as far as clothing, yes, it will be based on the type of exam. So one, you want to be comfortable, when you're coming into these exams. When you're thinking about something specific, like maybe a musculoskeletal exam, that maybe joint, legs, knees, elbows, arms need to have range of motion, consider having like maybe a pair of shorts or short sleeve shirt, maybe under your clothes that you're comfortable wearing. Typically in an in-person exam too, there can be a gown that's used. And so we want to be able to use a goniometer, because that's required to be able to measure accurately these joint range of motions, or to be able to see maybe any joint deformities. So looking directly at the skin for those conditions
Right.
would be ideal.
I guess this would be a fun fact. I went in for, I think it was a back exam, and this was before DBQs were even introduced at the VA, and I was a raider at the time. So I go in for the exam, and I remember waking up late. I overslept a little bit. I wasn't late to the appointment, but when I got up, I didn't have any clothes. I just threw on some sweatpants and some jogging pants and some flip flops and a t-shirt. I'm out the door. I get to the exam. The examiner is not paying any attention to me. I'm sitting in the seat. He's over on the computer and asking a question here and there. And he says, I'm there for a back exam. And he says, take your shoes off. Well, he never looked to see what type of shoes I had on. I had on flip flops. I kicked them off, and they make a sound like when you kick them off, they hit the floor, plop, plop, right? And he kind of like looked, and he said, okay, you can go ahead and put them back on. And I'm thinking, that was weird, right? I'm like, why would want me to take my shoes off? I'm here for a back exam. And it clicked. He was testing me. Because if you have on a pair, gym shoes, sneakers, or dress shoes, and they're laced up, and you're sitting in a chair, what do you have to do? You have to bend forward, and that is your forward flexion. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. So I was kind of like on edge, not on the edge, but every question he asked him to repeat it, because it gave me time. I had to think, like, what is he, trying to trick me now, So I think I did a video on that where I talked about range of motion, the goniometer. They have to use that to measure the range of motion. And also I did a video on what to do if that examiner does not use a goniometer or refuses to, because it's clear in the 38 CFR that is the tool they must use to measure the range of motion, to get accurate range of motion for joints. And when they on that exam, they have to state that they used it. So if they just eyeball it, what are they doing if they're saying that they actually used it and they didn't? So yeah, definitely a good point.
Yeah. And that's a good example you brought up, because as clinicians, we are trained to observe and inspect, not to try to disprove. Obviously we want to take, I don't encourage, exaggeration of symptoms. I don't encourage, fraudulent claims. But that is something that's just kind of like a trained eye. Like as an examiner, we do look to see, you know, how is this person's body motion? How is their, you know, their walking, their gait, those things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good to be kind of aware of that. And in your case too, like you didn't need to exaggerate symptoms because the back, you know, the back pain was there, the limited motion's there.
Yeah.
So that's a good story.
Yeah. All right, move right along. Number 3. If a veteran is doing a tele-exam, so like we're doing now on Zoom, what are some documents the vet may need to answer some of your questions?
Sure. So it's always good to have one kind of the lay statement or a way that you've kind of organized your thought processes around the claim. And also any type of medical records in front of you, like maybe diagnosed conditions, maybe if there's some sort of exam results, again, assuming that these are things we haven't been able to look for. Other things you might consider if it's something like a skin condition, like scarring, do you have a ruler with you? So like during the telehealth exam, it's something that can be looked at with kind of a measurement beside it. So if we're taking notes, we're able to actually be very specific about, you know, the length of a type of, you know, skin condition or issue. So anything, and I encourage you to, anything that helps you, you know, jog your memory or helps you kind of keep your thoughts organized, that's fine. Like bring as many notes as you need to. That doesn't automatically mean like, oh, this is not, you know, this person's not being truthful. It's just, it's a lot of information, and medical charts aren't always the easiest to remember. So those are things I would say for telehealth.
Right. Good point. Good point. You know, some things I've told veterans, one thing I've told veterans in the past, those old 3x5 cards that people really don't use anymore. You can pick them up at the Dollar Tree, Dollar General, you know, relatively, they're relatively inexpensive. And you, like you said, you can just jot down notes because it's a lot of information. I've seen veterans show up for like 15 conditions. You're not going to remember every single thing. And if you have, you know, diabetes, you know, you got diabetes exam. There it is. Prostate cancer, hopefully not, but you know, there it is. You can put the symptoms, times you void, all that stuff. And, you know, you can, you know, give that information to the examiner. So moving right along. Number 4, if the exam is in person, what are some things you wouldn't recommend a veteran to bring?
So things I wouldn't recommend is, I would say, information that is not relevant to the claim at hand. So if it's, let's take your example, if it's for back pain, medical records regarding any type of like maybe non-associated military condition are not necessary unless there's something that ties it to the back, if that makes sense. So, you know, secondary claims. So maybe if it is something about a knee condition, yeah, you know, that's supportive evidence that could maybe be contributing to the back. So bringing x-rays, that's fine. But if it's something about maybe a childhood scar that happened that had nothing to do with the military, but you know, you constantly are seeing a dermatologist for the condition, that information wouldn't be necessary.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes sense. One thing I tell veterans not to bring 1,000 or 2,000 pages or your entire VA claims folder to that exam. I think it would be different if they are reporting, you know, multiple times. They like, you know, if you require 3 or 4 visits before you complete the DBQ. And still, you know, for me to go through 1,000 pages, it's going to take, you know, maybe 2 or 3 days, 8 hours each day if you're going line by line. And that's a lot of time. And that's time that that a lot of clinicians, I'm pretty sure, don't have. So like you stated earlier, we were talking about the binder, making sure you're taking out pertinent information and tabbing it. And that makes it a lot easier to flip through 50, 60 pages other than, hey, I'm just bringing you a book bag full of papers. They're all out of order. And you just go, you know, you go through it, which is can be very time consuming. All right.
And let me add one more thing to that too. Like also thinking about in-service records. If there's any type of, you know, sick call that was done that's pertinent to the information, you know, hone in on those in-service records that show that. So those are also another key component with the VA disability claims.
Right.
So
I definitely agree. I definitely agree. All right. Um, number 5, can a veteran have a family member or caregiver to attend the in-person exam or telehealth exam?
yeah, in my instance, yes, absolutely. I would encourage you to have, because that's something that can be called like collateral evidence or the lay evidence. So it gives me an opportunity to also hear from someone who is with you more. Like
Right.
this one, realistically, this one snapshot in time that I'm seeing you is not going to paint a full picture of your day to day in and out, because some days can be better than other days. There can be flare ups that occur. And so being able to further support with that secondary person's evidence, that's something I can kind of put on a DBQ or in the note. Hey, this, loved one or this spouse who's been with this person can confirm that here are things that interfere with their relationship or their functioning as far as like work and social. So again, I feel like that's even just more evidence, and it can also kind of create a calming effect to where
Mhm.
it's like feeling very comfortable. You're coming in, you have support. Absolutely, you should. And just being able to help even recall some of those things, like we said, if not using a 3x5 card, this other person can also go, well, hey, remember last week you couldn't even get out of bed. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You're right. So, yeah, I think that's always a beneficial thing.
Okay. All right, Dr. Hannah, that's all the questions I have for you today. Again, I definitely appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on and answer some of those questions. So, veterans, if you are in need of a DBQ, especially for increase, or you're claiming something direct service connection or secondary service connection, which you need a DBQ and Nexus statement, make sure you click the link in the description section and reach out to American Heroes. Thank you again, Dr. Hanners.
Thank you. Have a good one, Dwayne.
Don't be frustrated, get educated.